Hey you guys, it's me, Katie B, and today we're going to be reviewing a book that was recommended to me by Scottish Geeks, who has his own gaming channel. I'll put the links for him down below. So thank you very much for this recommendation. And I've got a cup of tea with me here in an orange Tigger mug, which, funnily enough, matches the cover of the book that I'm reviewing today, which is Terry Pratchett's The Colour of Magic. Yes. Anyway, this book was recommended to me by Scottish Geeks. He recommended one of the later ones in the series, and I asked him if it was recommended that I read all of them, because I like to start from the beginning of any series. It's kind of a habit. Regardless of whether they're interlinked or not, I like to try and, if they're numbered, I like to start from the beginning and see where it goes from there. So he said, yep, I recommend it. So here it is, The Colour of Magic by Terry Pratchett. I'll read you the synopsis and then I'll give you my review. In the beginning, there was a turtle. Somewhere on the frontier between thought and reality exists the Discworld, a parallel time and place which might sound and smell very much like our own, but which looks completely different, particularly as it's carried through space on the back of a giant turtle, sex unknown. It plays by different rules, but then some things are the same everywhere. The Disc's very existence is about to be threatened by a strange new blight, the world's first tourist, upon whose survival rests the peace and prosperity of the land. Unfortunately, the person charged with maintaining that survival in the face of robbers, mercenaries and, well, death, is a spectacularly inept wizard. First off, this book was published in 1983, which is well before I was born, so some things, you know, it's one of those things. I can't help that, and neither can the author, but I have never read a book published before I was born before, so this is very much a first for me. And it's in a kind of, it's definitely more adultier fantasy rather than young adult fantasy that I usually read, but it's always good to read something outside of your comfort zone, mostly because it kind of challenges what you've gotten used to, really. And so I've always been very open-minded towards recommendations that are outside what I'd usually go for, because, you know, why not? It's good to try new things. First off, I really liked Rincewold. He was, because, you know, from my last review I mentioned I don't really like perfect characters and their ability to do everything, and Rincewold isn't exactly perfect, so I really liked that about him. He travels around with two fingers. He's the tourist. And what struck me as being different about this book from any previous book that I've read before is that instead of kind of chapters, there are 4 separate shorter stories within the book that kind of act as chapters, really. And I mean, they're quite long for, well, in comparison to most chapters that I've read, they're longer than most of those, but on the short story side they're about the same kind of size as most short stories. But yeah, I kind of missed having some kind of chapter to break it up, because I generally do have a short attention span at times, and yeah. There is so much detail in there that it is one of those books that I would recommend, if you do want to go and read it, that you read it at least 1 or 2 times to give it its full 1 or 2 times more than the first time you'd read it, just to give it its full kind of, just to really kind of fully understand everything and to get to grips with the world that Pratchett is creating, because there is quite a lot in there. On the other side though, he does tell a little bit more than he shows, and I think that is in part down to his journalistic background, because journalists, while they are telling a story, it's more based in kind of this happened and this happened from real life, and so it's not kind of the usual prose that you get from someone who's practiced in writing novelistic style prose, which you can kind of tell a little bit. I also got a little bit confused at times, so I did have to go back a couple of pages, which probably will explain why it took me a little while to kind of actually finish it, despite the fact that it is a 287 page book, which is shorter than the usual length of book that I've read. At around 300 pages is the usual one length that I find I normally come across. So it did take me a little bit longer for a few less pages. Yeah. And the secondary characters as well they weren't as memorable, I found. Sometimes you have secondary characters in books that are really just as memorable as the primary characters, your protagonist, your antagonist, but I couldn't tell who was who from the secondary cast, so yeah, that was a little bit confusing for me. I liked the personification of death and disease and fate and all that. It actually inspired me for something that I've actually been creating from uni, because I was doing a piece about a character called Life, and so having those kind of personifications and seeing how someone else had done it was kind of inspiring to me, which was quite cool. So yeah, it was nice to see another personification outside of death, because death is usually the most common that I find. The usual personification of anything outside of the usual characters like humans, and so yeah, so overall it was a really decent read. I certainly would consider reading the next books in the series as well, so that's a plus. But there were some obvious flaws in it, so I can't really give it a 4, but I would give it a 3.75 stars, which I rarely give out. So yeah, it's a really good book. Thank you for the recommendation, Scottish Geeks. I really enjoyed it, so because I was actually engaged through it, so that's something. Despite having to kind of go backwards and just to kind of understand what was going on in previous pages to understand what was going on in the present page that I'd gotten to, and despite that I was engaged, and it was a book that I couldn't really keep my mind off. So you know, it's thank you. Thank you, Scottish Geeks, and go check him out. He's an awesome Let's Player, so his links will be down below and the book's links will be down below. So yeah, I'll see you next time. I'm not sure what I'm reviewing yet, but yeah, it'll be up on Monday. Okay, Monday 10 AM, next one. See you then. Bye bye.